welcome to the Rural Roots Canada podcast. Your host, Tim Parent, alongside Craig Lester. And Craig, it's going to be another weather-focused podcast today because really that's been the story for the last couple of weeks, I think, across the Canadian prairies. It was a very wet end to spring and a very wet start to summer.
Yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. As someone that's been actually across most of the eastern part of the province and into, I guess, the western part of southern Alberta, you see all sorts of different types of weather in the past couple days. A lot of it has been wet, and it's been interesting to watch the skies, no matter where you are, sort of thing, in regards to what the clouds are doing. And I think there's been a couple moments when I've been thankful for just to be able to see the sun. I was commenting to someone the other day as we drove home to my farm that, drove by a canola field. On the day that I drove by, all you could see was barley stubble. You could see a little bit of green. And when I left 3 days later, you saw a lot of green and very little of the barley stubble from last year, which is just awesome to see. But again, those plants are really soaking that moisture up, and now they just need some heat.
Yeah, it's funny. I was driving through, I've been Calgary bound for the last little while, but driving through my neighborhood in my area, I don't remember it being this green and lush in quite some time. Everyone's grass is green, and areas that have been pretty more rocky than anything else now have a lush green grass growing everywhere, and that's because of the weather. So let's talk a little bit about exactly what's happening across the prairies. We are joined today by Mr. David Spence, who is, of course, our Rural Roots Canada meteorologist, as well as Linda Hunt. She is a farmer agronomist, and she's up in the northeastern part of the province where she's been dealing with some flooding as well. So, David, let's start with you, and let's talk about the weather. It has been a very rainy start to the summer. It was a very rainy spring season as well.
Yeah, it has been pretty rainy, all right, but it's very, very localized. The Edmonton area, central Alberta, has had an enormous amount of rain, especially just last weekend. They set some records for rainfall, June monthly records. Southern Alberta, not so much. I mean, we have had some pretty decent rain, but in Calgary, we're still below average as far as the month of June is concerned. Now, there are still a few days left in June, 6 days left, and there is some more rain on the way. So we'll likely make the average. The average for Calgary is over 100 millimeters for the entire month, and we are just under 60 right now. But for Edmonton, I mean, they had 100 millimeters of rain just last weekend, and records are starting to be set, and there's more on the way for this weekend. It's not a good picture, actually, for central Alberta. Earlier this week, Monday morning's post that I put up at ruralrootscanada.com suggested that the focus of this weekend's rainfall is going to be southern Alberta, but it now looks like the systems are shifting a little bit further to the north. So areas that are waterlogged now are likely the areas that are going to get more rain this weekend. I mean, we're talking maybe, just look at a chart here that suggests the Edmonton area could get another 45 millimeters of rain. Then you go down the highway to Vegreville, and you're looking at almost 80 millimeters of rain coming up this weekend. So, these areas are underwater. A lot of fields and pastures in these areas are already underwater. Rivers are running high, and this weekend is exactly what is not.
Linda is seeing that up in her neck of the woods. Linda, we saw some pictures that you had shared with us at Rural Roots here. A lot of flooded fields in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, and I mean, we're called Beaver County for a reason, so it's thankful. I am thankful this year for the amount of drainage ditches that were put in back in the day in the 40s and 50s. So it is, I think we can handle it, but it is high water, and lots of sloughs are filling up. So honestly, as a forage and livestock person, this is awesome because it's actually restocking our groundwater. So we're seeing our dugouts and our sloughs fill up like they didn't over the winter. So this is awesome. Not so good for crops that are trying to come up through those low spots.
And David, has this been an anomaly this year? It seems like we've been dealing with a lot of drought of the last few years, but now, like I said, quite the rainy start to the season.
Specifically for southern Alberta, it's not as unusual as you might think. The month of June is statistically the wettest month of the year. And as I say, Calgary's numbers in particular are still below average for the month of June. So no, this is not unusual. but we might think it is, or might perceive it is, because it has been so dry for so long that now we're getting some rain and we think, that he could build the ark.
Skies opened.
Yeah. But that's not necessary. This is actually quite typical. Your point about it being so green, though, is well taken. I mean, it's been quite some time since we've seen southern Alberta as green as it is now.
Yeah, I was just going to ask sort of thing in regards to numbers, in regards to storms, David. What's those? Do you have those handy in regards to the number of storms that we've seen? In regards to, I guess, ones that have caused a lot of damage or have been destructive?
I don't have any numbers on the number of storms we've had, but there have been a few severe storms, severe in that they've produced some hail. We had some hail last weekend that was quite soft. It kind of splatted as it hit the ground, and it started to accumulate and look more like snow than hail. And there might have been some minor damage done out of that. But I think the concern overall, again, depending on where you are, is the volume of water that has fallen. In some areas, it's still pretty short. Southern Alberta was still in a deficit. Central Alberta's had a lot of rain with a lot more to come. So I think that's the main factor in terms of storm damage, if you will. The other issue, of course, is the lack of heat. We've had a very cool spring. We haven't had days where temperatures have reached the mid-20s, never mind the high 20s. And we need that heat to get the crops coming out of the ground in a healthy way. And so far, that has been absent.
And quickly, Tim, you were talking about earlier about the photos that Linda sent over. Linda, can you just describe the photos that you are seeing, what you are seeing in your pastures on your farm?
Yeah, so it looks, a lot of them look normal, but when you walk out there, there's 4 to 6 inches of water underneath the grass. I shorted out my electric fence. I think I shared you that photo. So the top wire is electric and it's underwater right now. So it's been a bit of a challenge with the animals, getting them into a place where I know they're not going to get out and that sort of thing. I can't leave my yard without a 4x4. There's it's washed out my road, and it's washed out the county roads in all directions. So I'm just outside of the emergency zone that they created. It's just the one road over is where the emergency zone starts, going west in Tofield. And the towns are the ones I think that are hurting the most. My septic system isn't tied into there, so I can still flush my toilet, but they're having those kind of difficulties. There's the sewer systems, and as everything drains out through the sewer systems, it's just overloaded. So there is some people that are still not quite back in their homes, and there is still a lot of some pumps running in some of the villages. And I've heard from my neighbors too that they never had this kind of water in their basement. So it is an unusually high amount of water for our area, but people are kind of working on that. I had a call yesterday with the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation, and they talked about a storm particularly west of Lethbridge that was really, they said in the last 30 days that they've been having over 100 millimeters out that way, and how that is impacting the reservoirs. So positive impacts happening because it happened in the right place to fill some of those irrigation reservoirs, which I know is a relief for a lot of farmers that are on that irrigation district, but not overloading those reservoirs. So things are working as they should, and we're seeing some of that water replaced, which is really awesome.
And one follow-up to something you said earlier, just in regards to talking about your cattle and making sure that they're in the right spots. What kind of concerns are you worried in regards to when it comes to your cattle, some of the vegetation, the effect that all this water will have on it? Is there anything that you're keeping an eye on there?
No, hoof rot is always a thing. If you have a little bit of a crack in a hoof and it gets wet for an extended period of time, it can be a problem. So watching for lameness and that sort of thing, and trying to get them in a place where they are not getting muddy. So our hayland tends to be a little bit more gaps between the plants, and so there's more exposure to the mud, and there's more of an impact on compaction and that sort of thing. So we're trying to get them into places that have a really heavy sods or more native or naturalized pasture areas. During the rain, it was trying to get them in the trees so they could get a little bit of relief from the constant rain shower that was happening. And then the other thing for us, we have electric fence on the inside, so making sure that they're in a place where the fence is working and they're not going to swim their way to freedom. So those are kind of the things that I have in mind. And of course, we don't want them laying in the mud all the time either. So putting some straw out in places where they can get a little bit drier. Yeah, that seems to be more. I know some people with horses and not access to straw are really getting concerned because there is the trying to limit their feed. So if you have those horses that are a little bit of gluttons and you need to limit their feed, it's kind of tricky in this kind of a situation where the corrals can be really muddy. So again, more straw, putting them out, maybe tethering them. There's lots of other actions that are being taken, but it is something that anybody with livestock has to pay attention to.
Wait, cows can swim?
Yeah.
Pretty boy here, didn't know that.
Yeah, it is a thing. When the sloughs get too high, all of a sudden your cows are in somebody else's pasture through a slough. So it does happen. Yeah.
Doggy paddling over to
That's right. That's right.
David, we've been talking a lot about Alberta, but we're not the only ones dealing with a lot of rain. And I want to hop over a couple of provinces to Manitoba, which was dealing with some pretty nasty flooding as well.
Yeah, they have. They've had a really wet spring in southern Manitoba, and it's been difficult for them because these storms, even more so than Alberta, have come one after another, and they haven't had very many dry breaks at all where they can get out on the fields and do the work, and everything is behind schedule there because of it. And they're getting more rainfall as well out of this same system that's going to bring some rain to Alberta this weekend. It is going to make its way across very slowly. And when weather systems move slowly, there's just an opportunity for them to dump a whole lot more rain than they would if they were faster moving systems. So they're in it as well. Southern Saskatchewan too. I mean, this is going to be a widespread event for all of the agricultural regions across the three prairie provinces, but it's probably like central Alberta, some parts of central Alberta, it's probably the last thing Manitoba needs, especially because they are so far behind in some of the work that they need to do in the spring. And, you know, like I said, I'm a city boy, but from what my understanding is, the window is closing. I mean, the more rain you have in the spring, especially if you haven't seeded yet, you start seeding now, your crop might freeze before it matures in the fall for harvest. So it's a pretty serious situation, even more so than it is here in Alberta.
So I was at a conference in Saskatoon, and there were people still just squeaking in before that crop insurance deadline, getting their seeding done. So late to the conference in order to try and get that in, and for that exact reason, just because of how wet it's been out there.
Looking ahead, David, can we make any forecast predictions for the remainder of the summer? And if we're going to see, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, and it's always, you know, things can change on a dime, certainly out in the Canadian prairies, but any indication that is this going to be a particularly rainy summer?
No, there's no reason to believe that because El Nino is setting up, which is a dry weather pattern for us. It's not going to fully set up, I don't think, until maybe September or October, but in the process of it building, the things should dry out for us. That is not a guarantee. That is not a forecast. That's just the expectation at this point. But typically, the wet season for us, as I mentioned, is June, and it lasts until about midway through July, and things start to taper off a little bit. And then by mid-August, your thunderstorm season comes to an end as well. So if El Nino carries on the way it's doing, we should become drier going into July and August, but keyword being should.
Linda, you also have been keeping track of the situation up in the Peace region.
Yeah, I have a number of contacts up there, and of course I'm connected with the Ag Service Board, so we get a little bit of an update every time we're on a meeting. And so it's been really dry up there for the past 3 years. This was working on year 3 of drought-like conditions, and people were getting quite nervous about how the season is going to go. But it has not as much rain as we've been getting in the central region, but a little bit closer to normal, a little bit spottier. So I'm not saying that all areas are in the free and clear, but it looks like in general they're getting the rains as they need them, and there's a good indication that crops are going to be successful this year. So that was a really great thing to know.
definitely some encouraging news for the Peace region.
Absolutely. It's very difficult for farms to last three 4 seasons of crops. It's really hard to hold it all together.
An interesting perspective, and kind of goes back to a little bit of what David was talking about in regards to southern Alberta and it not being that abnormal, is that, you know, we saw a bit of rain while I was home, some heavy, like a half hour worth of rain down in the Rolling Hills area. And what I had been understanding is that in the area that farmers were already looking at firing up pivots just prior to that again. Like there's been enough wind going on that it's dried things out. So you get rain and then it gets windy and then it dries out and then you need water again, sort of thing. So farmers were already looking at firing up their irrigation systems and taking care of that. And I was out the day after a heavy rain, making my way towards the Claresholm area, and I saw 2 or 3 pivots on during my drive from Rolling Hills to the Claresholm area. So I mean, it does, as I said, as you were mentioning, David, there is still a need for water in that area, and again, the farmers down in that area, because they have irrigation, are still utilizing it. So
yeah, it's all very localized. What Central Alberta is totally different from the south. The north is totally different from central. There's been snow in the mountains. I mean, it's everything.
We're running the gamut here in all of Alberta, that's for sure, weather-wise. I tell you, I've never lived anywhere where the weather is so different in every different section. Like, you could really just sort of cut it off into 3 different sections here in Alberta. It's fascinating stuff. David, Linda, appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, and that is it for this week's podcast. I hope everyone stays dry over the coming days, and good luck to all the farmers who are dealing with a lot of water on their land. On behalf of Craig Lester, I'm Tim Parent. Thanks so much for joining us.